Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The challenge of affordable housing in Memphis, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Dorcas Young-Griffin. She is Director of Community Services for Shelby County Government. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
Amy Schafflein is Executive Director of United Housing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. We'll talk about affordable housing and just the challenge of it. You were on, Dorcas, a year and a half ago, time lost all meaning, COVID, talking about some of these challenges. But for each of you, talk real quickly, the role of your organizations. Yours is a nonprofit. Obviously, this is a division of county government, but I'll start with you, Amy. What is, for people who don't know, what is United Housing and what role do you play in trying to address these challenges?
United Housing is a nonprofit housing developer. We're also a counseling agency, and our mission from the beginning of our inception back in the mid-90s is all around making homeownership possible and accessible for Memphians of all incomes, but mostly low to moderate income. So we provide financing. We also provide the home buyer education, the home maintenance. Once you get in the home, that's not the end of it. You got to know how to maintain home ownership over time. And so that's something that we work with our clients on every day.
I think when we had you on, Dorcas, it was partly there was a great deal of COVID money and going to help people. Maybe talk about the role that you all played then and now, and at least somewhat more normal times that you play in terms of affordable housing.
Yeah, normal times, right. So yes, back in 2021, we received with the City of Memphis $132 million to distribute to residents who were experiencing hardships with rent payments, with evictions, and just housing stability. We have successfully distributed all of those funds in Shelby County. I do want to just give a shout out to the team that has done that. This week during the National Association of Counties, Secretary Janet Yellen gave a big shout out to the conference about Shelby County and the great work that was done by the team in terms of eviction prevention and housing stability. We are now at a place where that unprecedented amount of money is not here. And so we are now really looking to leverage existing resources that we have to continue the work of keeping people stably housed. It's the biggest challenge that our division, and I think in a lot of ways county government faces, because there is a great need for folks to be stably housed in this community. The people that we know about and the people that we haven't even touched yet.
You talked when you were on about, well, one, the $132 million, part of what was remarkable about that, and people can go back and watch that show, I won't revisit the whole thing, was communities around the country were struggling to spend that money, which seems counterintuitive. How do you do that? And actually Memphis got extra money, right? Because the federal government took money from communities that weren't spending it or spending it properly and gave it to those that were, and Memphis benefited from that. But the part of what you talked about was you had money available, but there wasn't housing available.
Right.
I can't remember the number. You said sometimes I'll have thousands and thousands of dollars for these families, and I have nowhere to put them. And I always come back to that dynamic.
Yeah, I think that I really struggle. That keeps me up at night, really just thinking about that. We have had so many resources available for families. And some of those families we were able to keep in existing housing, right? And so that's a win. But there were too often times, I can't give you an accurate number, but I can tell you it's more than 100. There were countless times where we were able to maybe pay people's back rent, but we weren't able to keep them from being evicted because maybe they still got far behind. And when they were evicted, we could give them a check and try to help get them put somewhere, but there was nowhere to go. I think the issue that we have is not only affordable housing, but also safe and quality housing in this community. And again, it's a huge challenge. And we know in community services, people are talking about public safety and public safety is on a continuum. Housing has to be a part of any public safety plan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let me bring in Bill.
And what does that look like in the public safety plan? Is it the location? Is it the features of it? Is it the amenities that are around it?
I'm going to lean on Amy, but for Dorcas and community services, it is safe, quality housing. You can't have housing that is sick. Like if people are sick because they are living in a place where there's mold, where things are falling apart, that breeds so many, the outcomes of crime, the outcomes of just all of the things that we're faced with.
Well, when so many neighborhoods have had decades of disinvestment, and then you have a foreclosure crisis that comes in and strips wealth out of these neighborhoods and then turns the houses into rentals. And then you continue to build out, but yet you neglect your properties within the city. You're going to have these instances of properties that are just not hardly livable. And when you see people living with holes in their roof, holes in the floors, funding to get that fixed is something that we've worked with Dorcas on at Shelby County using American Rescue dollars, is home repairs for the elderly, because they are living in substandard, usually single family, but there are also many apartment complexes that have been disinvested in, as we've heard. So I think that's really important, is to maintain our housing stock as we continue to build new. But when you haven't built new in these neighborhoods for decades, and we're still not maintaining the existing inventory, that's why we have so many people with nowhere to go, even if they have, the deposit to put down.
So when you find open land or you assemble parcels to build something that's going to help with the scale of new affordable housing or renovated affordable housing that is nearby, and kind of a spillover effect into that. Is it harder to scale new affordable housing than it is to like build a house here, build a house there?
It can be, because we're working with, again, owners of property that we don't know who they are, or if it's in the land bank, getting through that process. So there's the process of assembling land like that would have that critical mass and scale in the city and in certain neighborhoods where there's been a lot of vacancy. Number one, you got to get banks that want to finance something like that, and then which doesn't really happen. And if you want private builders to do that, they're not going to, because it's just the numbers aren't going to pan out. So if nonprofits work, like there has been nonprofits in North Memphis that have been able to do this, you're going to have to assemble them hundreds at a time, and we're going to have to work with county government, city government, land bank, trustee. Everybody has to come together and agree on being able to assemble land in that way. And of course the communities. I mean, the communities have not had much control over what has happened to a lot of the land and the properties in the area.
Right, and that's been a key point of discussion with the Klondike Northside High project, mostly the Klondike part of that, which is housing, because the philosophy has been the Klondike partnership of these groups has about 400 parcels out of 1,300 parcels in that particular area, and their case to the Shelby County Commission and to the City Council for a TIF was, we know that market forces are going to come into this neighborhood at some point, and when they do, that they are going to charge market value in terms of rents or for home ownership there in particular.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about the challenge of affordable housing. We've seen that happen in Binghamton. We've seen that happen in other neighborhoods where people live there, they rent there, and then they want to buy, and they can't, because by the time they're ready to buy, the prices have gone out of their affordability. And so I think that one reason why you want to see like shared equity programs or some kind of longer term affordability with these 400 units, or at least half of them maybe, to stay affordable over time will be important, because if you do have market forces come in, you want to make sure those living there now can afford to stay, and their families can afford to come back and stay. So, yeah.
So what are the tools that, to use an overused phrase, what are the tools that are in the toolbox for local government to be able to say to developers, no, this is where we want affordable housing to come to scale. And we know it wouldn't pencil out if it were just market driven, or if it was just, what are the tools in your toolbox to make it happen in those places?
So my toolbox is a little bit different from maybe the toolbox of like the Division of Planning and Development and the City of Memphis Housing and Community Development. Community Services is really focused on supporting the people that live in these homes. And so what my toolbox has is resources to try to build stronger individuals, stronger families that can sustain the housing, the neighborhoods that developers are hopefully willing to invest in. We can build and build and build. We can make all the pretty stuff, but if people if they're not strong, then the neighborhood we get another 50 years, we'll be right back where we are now. So I will let the planning folks speak to the other tools, and Amy may know because she often works with both HCD and Planning and Development.
Well, but before
okay.
we go to Amy, you also touched on an important point here, because the point is not to displace people who are
Right.
already there and who have been there, may be senior citizens, may be family members who have inherited the property.
Absolutely. You know, I don't know. I know I'm on television, but my husband is from further out east in Nashville. And one of the things he always speaks about Memphis is the people and the connectedness and how the people make Memphis special. And so the people make neighborhoods special. And so it is really critical to our long range plan as a city to invest in those people and keep those people in neighborhoods and keep those neighborhoods strong. It makes us unique. It makes us different. It makes this city stronger. And so that really is our role in community services, is to help build stronger people and stronger families to live in these amazing houses that Amy and a lot of our nonprofits are working on in the community.
Okay, so Amy, on the side that you work with, some of the methods that are out there.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that, and then I'll go back to the people, because we also work with the people every day. But so we're a home builder too. We work with contractors, local contractors, to do home repairs, so that's small time home repairs, and then bigger rehabs and new construction. So we work with the Housing and Community Development, and they have passed through federal dollars, CDBG, home funds. And the problem with those funds is that they're very highly regulated, and they put a huge administrative burden on nonprofits, and there's a lot that we have to do that we don't get, paid for, you know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of things that we have to do outside of just the home building, and then so that's a little bit of a barrier, but those are subsidies. And then another state subsidy that we work with is the Community Investment Tax Credit. And that allows for banks to invest in nonprofit housing developers to get bank financing at a really low rate, so that they can invest, the banks can invest in neighborhoods where they may not have in a while, and they get to invest in a nonprofit, which also gets them credit with their regulators. And so taking advantage of that program allows us to finance projects that wouldn't have worked otherwise, because of the appraisal gap or because of an affordability gap. So even if they do appraise for what they're supposed to be, but our families can't afford that, we have some subsidy that will allow them to afford it. And they get in with equity already, so that's a good thing.
How much does the big jump in interest rates hurt everything you're
man.
trying to do? I mean, it was not easy in the first place.
Well, no. Well, it wasn't easy in the first place. But going back to what Dorcas was saying about working with people, people call us, especially during the pandemic. Where can I go? We don't. I need to go somewhere. And we worked with the city for rental assistance too. But when you had the rates fly up, and then the sales, prices flew up, and then rent was also going up, we saw buyers drop out. People can't afford, once it got over 5%, I mean, people weren't, and that's what I'm saying about accessibility. At a time when families could get into homes at 2.5%. And a lot of our Memphis families were not able to get in at that rate. And now, you know, they're sitting fine, and people are, they're seeing their rents rise, and, you know, they have less control over.
Your goal primarily is to get people into home ownership?
Yes.
Is that correct? That's the goal?
Right.
Yeah.
The goal is financial stability, and through home ownership is where we see as one of the major ways a lot of families are able to find that financial stability.
How do you work with families, and maybe this is the counseling part, because, you know, having owned many homes, lovely, really old, historic, leaky homes, I mean, home ownership is not just the monthly payment,
Exactly.
the interest rate, as anyone who's owned a home knows. I mean, it is all these other costs.
Right.
And how do you help people, prepare people for all, your air conditioner went out, your heat went out, there's a hole in the roof because a tree fell through it. I mean, not everyone necessarily is ready for that.
Exactly. So we have, shout out to our HUD certified counselors. We have 3 housing counselors on staff, and they work one-on-one with individuals going through their budget. What's their current income? What are their current debts? How much could they afford in a home? That's something that a lot of people don't realize. You know, they have this idea of HGTV home, you know, but you know, what you can afford. And once you get into the home, what kind of home maintenance is necessary? What, you know, taxes and insurance, that's part of the monthly pay, you know, all of that stuff. They walk through the start to the end with the individuals. And we have classes too, 4 times a month.
Y'all's goal is really more to house people, right? I mean, at some level, just to be housed in a stable, safe place.
To get people into a stable housing situation. Yes. Yes. Whether there is a rental, we do help people with payments towards their mortgages as well. We help folks that are experiencing acute homelessness and get them into temporary shelters in order to move them into a more permanent home. So we are working all across the continuum of housing instability every day.
And you talked about strong and good neighborhoods, and that that's the key. What are those? Are public safety? Those are utilities and lighting? Those are good neighbors, not bad neighbors? I mean, what are those issues, and how much do you have control over?
I'm an optimist, Eric, so, you know, that's a gift and curse. You know, how much control do we have? I don't know, but I know regardless of how much control we ultimately have, we have to do something. And so when I think about good neighborhoods, that means safe housing. And when I say safe, I mean the community, it is free of environmental hazards. It is free of public safety violence threats. It is walkable. The places that people go into don't have mold and rat infestation. It is not they are not living in a position where they can't afford month to month. They don't know what's going to happen. So it's lots of things.
And can I just say, like, if you love economic development, if you're into job creation, if you're into, you know, health and wellness, then you have to be into housing, because if the future of our workforce is walking past vacancy and living with rats and things like that, I mean, that doesn't paint a happy future for anybody. So if you really want to cultivate a healthy, vibrant workforce from Memphians and not bringing them in from somewhere else, then we've got to think about housing.
Yeah, Bill.
Amy, we talked several months ago at a new development in Fraser that is on James Road where McLean dead ends into it. And in that same area, the new Fraser Branch Library is right next door to this group of houses at the subdivision. You've also got part of the Wolf River Greenway at what used to be Rodney Baber Park is under construction over there. To link up to it. What has been the impact of that, all of that taken together on the existing homeowners in that area of Fraser?
Well, I'll just say when we first started and acquired that land, everybody thought we were a little bit crazy.
And it was a long haul.
It was
to
so
be fair.
long, yeah. So we got it like 2004, then the crash happened. Anyway, it's a long story, but we were finally completed the 34 units there. And I think the impact is huge. You know, when we started, we were selling them at $129. Now they're selling for more than that. So people are slowly gaining equity in their home. They're also now close to amenities, like you mentioned, the library, the park. And they're living them, and they've stayed there. You know, they're in their home for 7 years or more, and these homes are energy efficient. So I think it's given a yard to their kids, something else they were really excited about. These are larger lots. And in a neighborhood where it has, over the last 10 years, really, you know, started to come back and come up again. And so I'm really proud of that development, and I hope that we can continue to build more out there.
How hard was it to find a lender for that?
Really hard in the beginning, but the last 5 years or so, we've been able to have really great lender partners help us finish that housing.
In your work with homeowners, not renters, but homeowners, an appraisal where the value of the property goes up is not always a source of good news for a new homeowner, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. When you start thinking again about all of the things, like, hey, I can see down the road my house is worth more, but that also means my investment monthly is more. And, you know, that can be a real barrier for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
A whole lot of folks. And so I will tell you through our toolbox, unfortunately, a lot of the money that we receive is grant funds from the federal government or state government, and those funds are limited. And so we may have caps on how much we can provide a family regardless of how that appraisal value changes, right? And so that can be a real concern for folks. And we have had folks to have to give up their homes because it's worth more, which seems completely wrong.
That's the vulnerabilities piece of it. You know, when you have families that are very vulnerable to losing their home because of the taxes.
Right.
I mean, that's where, like, we do a lot of that kind of education from the beginning. Know that these things happen. This is the taxes. This is like all these things. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's just really tough when you're living paycheck to paycheck like that.
Right.
And you can't make it.
With just 3 minutes left here, a bigger issue right now, but the whole issue of blighted homes that go into tax sales end up at the Shelby County Land Bank, right? So the intention, I'm going to do a bad job, but the intention of the Shelby County Land Bank is for homes that no one came forward to buy them. There had to be some place for them to go so that the title could be cleared and then they could be resold. Kind of, sort of. Right now, the County Commission has asked for a 90-day moratorium. And is it an audit too? Is that right, Bill? Or they've talked about an audit, an external audit?
They're still talking about an audit and what that would involve.
Does that impact what you're doing?
A little bit. But yes, it does.
Because I'm sorry, nonprofits, sometimes individuals buy from the land bank, sometimes nonprofits buy from the land bank, nonprofits like yours, like the Works that we talked about,
right.
Others that do that. And Commissioner Brittany Thornton had concerns about some of these nonprofits, and I don't know if she was talking about you, I have no idea. I don't mean to put you in that seat, but just, is that a problem in terms of moving some of these often empty homes into usable space and ownership if this Shelby County Land Bank isn't working the way it's supposed to?
If it's not working the way it's supposed to, then we're going to have this issue where we can't scale affordable housing. So if it's working properly, then we'll be able to scale it. And I think, you know, I don't know everything that went down with Klondike and all of that, but I guess the commission is just wanting to have more transparency, but to me, if we're going to get properties donated to the nonprofits, the commission has to see those, right? So I think it's just about educating, you know, your reps, and if you want to have access to certain units or certain lots, just going to your, you know, representative and talking about what you would do with these lots and where your financing is going to come from. And but yeah, if there's a moratorium, like that doesn't really help anyone right now.
Yeah. Do you want to jump in as a county employee? Would you like to jump into this county commission?
No, I will just be watching. I will be at all of the meetings. Many of the nonprofits that work with the land bank also work with us on other projects. So even though the land bank is not in my purview, it is important what happens with that to the folks that we're serving each day. Mm-hmm.
I do think that some of this is a function of having a new commission that has just been in office since September 1st, who are taking a critical look at really everything that comes across their desk, because this is all new to 6 of those 13 commissioners.
Yeah, and you did an interview with Brittany Thornton in the last week that's available
Right,
on Daily Memphi, and
for our
talking
On the
about her
Record.
concerns and so on. But there's a minute left, so there's not enough time here. But that problem of owners of homes, maybe who are up to speed on their taxes, but are renting out homes and aren't good landlords in areas where you've maybe done a ton of work over many years and invested a whole lot of money, private and public and so on. What can be done about bad landlords at the house-by-house level?
Well, we can,
30 seconds.
30
So,
seconds.
yeah,
I don't
30
have 30 seconds. I need like 30 minutes. What we can do is, I mean, code enforcement, I think you can educate landlords and renters both on their rights. I think we can hold them accountable for being an environmental hazard in the neighborhoods through environmental court. But there's property laws, there's not a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. All right, well, we can maybe do a whole other show. Yes, thank you both for being here. Appreciate it very much. Sorry not to give you enough time on that important question. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining us. If you missed any of this show, you can get it at WKNO.org, or you can go to YouTube and search for Behind the Headlines. There's also a podcast version of the show that you can get on the Daily Memphian site, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.